Hi everyone.
Hello. In previous segments of this series in the Gospel of John, we've looked at the absence of the tetragrammaton from those passages where you might expect it to be most frequently found, i.e. the chapters around the verses where you habitually go to establish that Jesus Christ used the divine name and made it known, and this was his goal. So that's John 17, but we looked at chapters 13 through 17, and we saw the name is completely absent from those chapters, even in the New World Translation. What's the name that is there? Well, it's the Father. Far more frequently than anything else, it's the Father, my Father sometimes God a handful of times, but 49 times Christ designates his Father as his Father. The tetragram's completely absent, and then we looked at John 1:3, 1:2-3, and we saw that neither does John the Apostle use it, nor Jesus, nor Nicodemus. Once it's in the mouth in the New World Translation of John the Baptist.
As a quote from the Old Testament.
That's their justification.
Mm-hmm.
But we looked at the improbability of that because who was John talking to at the time?
Religious leaders, so they would not have taken that calmly if he used the divine name.
But they don't even seem to blink.
Yeah.
They go on asking him questions about theological issues, about his identity.
Nobody picks up stones to stone him.
As they do later with Christ when he makes an allusion to his own divinity in the I am sayings. So we want to look at John 4 and 5 because here you have Jesus continuing his mission. Here he's traveling from Galilee to Galilee, from Jerusalem, from Judea, and he's going through Samaria necessarily. And of course there's the famous story of the woman at the well. Let's read verses 7 to 10 just to pick up the story where the designation of God actually happens.
A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink," for his disciples had gone off into the city to buy foodstuffs. Therefore the Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, despite being a Jew, ask me for a drink, when I am a Samaritan woman?" For Jews had no dealings with Samaritans. In answer Jesus said to her, "If you had known the free gift of God, and who it is that says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water."
What's the amazing thing here? Well, the woman knows immediately. What's amazing about this is Samaritans were treated as apostates by the Jews.
Yeah.
This is a Jewish rabbi. Jewish rabbis, even in Judea, didn't normally talk to women in public. So there's an amazement on at least two levels, which is she's a woman and she's an apostate Samaritan from the standpoint of a Jew.
Yeah.
So she's stunned that he will even have any dealings with her. But notice how when Christ is given this golden opportunity to speak the name, which is the brand of the true religion, what does he say?
He calls God, the free gift of God.
He calls God God.
Yeah, it's his only designation.
So the dialogue goes on, and of course she's more and more amazed, not only at his treatment of her, but in what he knows about her. So by the time you get to verse 19, she's decided this man is something else. So let's read from 19 to 26, where you have other designations for the deity.
The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive you are a prophet. Our forefathers worshipped in this mountain, but you people say that in Jerusalem is the place where persons ought to worship." Jesus said to her, "Believe me, woman, the hour is coming when neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you people worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, because salvation originates with the Jews. Nevertheless, the hour is coming, and it is now, when the true worshippers will worship the Father with spirit and truth. For indeed, the Father is looking for such like ones to worship him. God is a spirit, and those worshiping him must worship with spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. Whenever that one arrives, he will declare all things to us openly." Jesus said to her, "I who am speaking to you am he."
Well, verse 26 strikes us immediately as odd because this is not the way normally Christ deals with Jewish crowds. But here with a Samaritan woman, he says, "I am that Messiah you're thinking about and
before
looking for."
it was hidden a lot of the time from the public.
So that's a bit of a difference. And then there's the divine designations. I mean, he's got a chance here, a golden opportunity to speak the truth about God to a woman who needs to know the truth. And what does he call God in this sequence? Well, in verse 21,
The Father.
"On this mountain, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father." I think it's worth noting in verse 23 again when he says what the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, not with spirit, in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. So twice more the Father, and then in verse 24, God is spirit. Now we have a lot to say about that, but
Yeah, theirs translates it, God is a spirit, when there's no a, right, in the Greek.
yeah, there's no a. Actually, the Greek text says spirit, the God.
Yeah, and they do have a footnote for this one, which I thought was kind of devious too, in that it says, it starts by saying lit, so literal, and then it puts a spirit is the God. A is not in brackets, but that's supplied by them, and is in brackets.
Supply.
So it's supplied. But why bother saying literally if you're not going to say what it says literally? If you're going to supply all kinds of things in between, then you're no longer saying what it actually says. Now underneath it has Greek, and then it has it in Greek, and I'm not good at speaking Greek, but what is it? Pneuma? Pneuma ho theos.
Literally, spirit, the God.
Yeah.
So what's missing is, the article is missing. You wouldn't know that from the footnote.
Yeah.
There is no indefinite article in the Greek. Just like in John 1:1, where you have the word was with God and the word was a God in that translation.
Yeah.
No indefinite article. There is a definite article in the Greek, as there is here. The God. So literally it's spirit, the God. So there's no verb and there's no article.
Yeah. So, to do this for the average person, and I was average, I wouldn't have read the footnote, first of all, because I wasn't used to reading footnotes. But if I had read it, I wouldn't have known those things. I wouldn't know, first of all, that brackets meant something is supplied. And here, they don't even supply brackets around A.
No.
They just leave that. And I would have just trusted them, that they're telling me what it actually means, because they've said lit.
Okay,
literal.
so there's the translation issue. But other translations, of course, supply is. The ESV says God is spirit. No capital S. No capital S. They have a capital S, right?
Yes, they do have capital S.
Yet they don't believe spirit is personal in God's case.
Yeah, so why put... Because they don't put capital S for the other spirits.
But the ESV has the opposite. God is spirit, small s. But they supply is, because that's the sense of it. The verb often is supplied if it is a simple verb like is in the, not just in Greek but in many languages, including Aramaic. So it's quite likely that there was a verb or intention of a verb there originally. But what's the major reason that this is important here in this context? Well, it's because of the placement of God, i.e. this argument between the Samaritans and the Jews as to where you can worship God legitimately. And Christ wants to say, no, even though in verse 22 he says salvation is from the Jews, he still makes the point that God the Father wants us to worship him in spirit and truth. And as soon as you start locating God in the universe, putting him in this or that temple, or in this or that organization, in the case of the cults, you realize you've got the problem, which is God should be worshipped everywhere.
Yeah.
This is the
It's containing God.
containing God.
So I know, like, when I was a witness, when I thought of spirit, God being a spirit, I still had a spirit body, so I still was containing God. I was still making him in a locality, in my mind anyways. It was, you know, contained.
In heaven, in the case of the Watchtower,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say in the case of Islam. But there's
So the sense
there's a million variants on where you think God is, but the whole point is God is nowhere from our standpoint. He's beyond space and time.
Yeah, the sense of God being infinite is lost on witnesses then.
Yeah.
They don't really conceive of God that way.
Well, this is why we made a video that you might want to look at, based on James Orr's book. And one of the points he makes about the agreement among Christian theologians and thinkers over the centuries has been that God is infinite, so he can't be bound by space, nor even by time. So that's missed entirely when you have a spirit, as if God is just a bigger version of an angel.
Yeah.
But the point about worshiping him in spirit and truth, and the designation of the Father, we don't want to lose that emphasis, that he's saying we must worship the Father in spirit and truth. And in the next chapter, we're going to see that when Christ is in confrontation with the elders, the establishment in Jerusalem, he says some pretty outrageous things that cause them to want to get rid of him. And one of the things he does is establish that his self-designation, his thought about himself, is that he is somehow the unique son of the Jewish God. That causes them to accuse him immediately of blasphemy.
Of being equal with God, right?
So in the next chapter, Christ confronts the establishment in Jerusalem. I shouldn't say chapter, should I? I should say in the next video.
Yes.
The next video. Trying to be a good boy.
Good.
In the next video, Christ confronts the establishment in Jerusalem. What does he call God when he's in direct confrontation with the religious leaders?